Hey, sister friend, I am so happy to have you listening to the Her Best Self podcast. Today's content is going to be a little bit different, and I so love it. I am going to parse out the exact steps that I would take if I was trapped in an eating disorder all over again. Because, friend, the opposite of quitting is recommitting. And sometimes that means that you need a spelled out roadmap that is going to help you define what steps you can take to recommit. So if I was trapped in an eating disorder right now today, here is exactly what I would do. Hey girl, welcome to the Her Best Self podcast. I'm Lindsay Nickel, former competitive figure skater and perfectionist, turned God-led imperfect boy mom and digital CEO. If you find yourself constantly thinking about food and wondering if you'll wake up one day free from the obsessive thoughts and behaviors controlling your life, then I've created this podcast for you because I know exactly what it's like to be a downright hot mess trapped in the destructive cycle of disordered eating. I finally found freedom, and you can too, girlfriend. So if you're ready to heal your relationship with food and body and break the chains of control and show up in your best health, then grab your favorite Tarjay journal and let's get to it so you can start living your best life as your best self. Hey girl, hey. So welcome to the show. Thank you so much for listening. I wanted to start the episode today. I normally kind of sprinkle this in or wait till the very end to talk about it. But I wanted to invite you, if you are currently struggling with disordered eating behaviors or an eating disorder that you know has been around for decades and you are so tired and you are so fed up, sis, I want to help you. I personally feel like God has put in my heart and has called me to help as many women as possible get through to the other side and to recover from this devastating illness. And I don't want you to sit on that anymore. If you've been listening to the show, I hope you feel like this is a safe place for you and that this is your home. And I am so encouraged that you keep coming back and listening to episodes here. But here's your personal invitation. Let's take this up a notch. Okay, it's one thing to listen and apply, and I love that you're soaking up all of the content because it's absolutely free and it is my gift to you. But I want you to take it up a notch. Go on out to the website, herbestself.co. Shout out to Brandwell Designs who designed the website. It is absolutely incredible. You want to go partner with them if you are looking to build a website, go out to the website, fill out a client application there. We can get on the phone together and we can talk about what you need to navigate next steps in your recovery journey and how you can get to freedom. You know, I look back on my history and I just never thought, I'd be doing this, but I never thought that I could help somebody else get to the level of freedom that I have received in my life. It's incredible to me, and it is truly only God that I'm able to continue to bless so many women. And it is such a blessing in return because I feel like I'm finally living in the purpose that I was created to live in. And this has been over, the past couple years now that I have had the privilege to work with so many women and coach them one-on-one. And that is where I feel like my gift shines to the world. And that's not like a braggadocious type of gift. It's more so of in the coaching space, I feel like I'm able to get you results. And we work together on tiny little wins that lead up to massive overcoming and triumph stories. And I have so many of those stories. And I can't wait to share even more of them with you here. But I know this is a vulnerable place and not every client wants to come and talk about their life story and all that they have gone through. But it's just an honor for me to be able to support so many women. And so I'm opening the doors to take on a few additional clients. And if you've been on the fence of working one-on-one with a recovery coach, now's the time to get in. It is not something you want to wait on. So that's just my little plug for today. I want to encourage you to do this and commit to your future self. So we're going to get into today's content. I want to talk with you about what I would do if I was going through recovery right now, what I would do if I relapsed or if I was going through eating disorder recovery right now. Many of you have reached out asking for guidance on what to do when you're experiencing a relapse. But rather just speaking in theoretical terms, I wanted to make this a real and practical episode. So today I'm going to be sharing exactly what I would do if I find myself either relapsing into my eating disorder, or if I were to go back in time to my younger self and say, this is what you need to do right now. These are the specific steps that I would take. This is not the advice that I would just give to someone else, but it is the actual roadmap, the golden nugget of what I would follow myself. Because sometimes what we need most is not knowledge, but a clear, concrete path forward. Before we begin on this one, I just want to acknowledge that if you are experiencing a relapse, this is very normal. It is a very normal part of recovery, and I don't feel like enough people talk about it. And it doesn't mean you failed. It simply means you're human. If you're there right now, I want you to know that you're not alone and that reaching out for support is an act of courage. It is not a sign of weakness. So let's dive in. The first step in my personal recovery roadmap would be recognizing and accepting that I'm in this mess. And this might sound super obvious, but it's actually one of the hardest things, is admitting where you are, and where you are is no longer where you want to be. If I were relapsing today, I know I'd likely experience this strong pull towards denial, and I might tell myself things like, I'm just being more careful about what I eat, or I'm having a few bad days, or I can handle this on my own. I might minimize behaviors. I might rationalize behaviors. If I was back in my younger self, and I could talk myself through it, my first and most crucial step would be to name what's happening. Literally to get out of the denial phase so much sooner. And I would say plainly to myself, and something that you can do today, like without shame, without minimizing, is super essential here. But for me personally, I know that, there would be certain signs. Am I skipping meals? Am I becoming super preoccupied with these food thoughts? Am I feeling anxious around meal times? Am I weighing myself? And once I've named that this is where I am, that I no longer want to be, I would take a moment to practice self-compassion. Not excusing the behavior, sis, but to acknowledge that eating disorders are complex illnesses. And they are not signs that you are failing. And if I could go back to her, I would tell her with her hand over her heart, this is really hard, girl. This is really hard. There are so many people that are out there struggling with eating disorders right now. But I don't want you to sit in your house by yourself through this difficult time. And so what I wanted to share with you is the first step would be recognition and acceptance. This really is about creating this foundation so that you can move forward in action versus sitting in it. I spent so long in pure denial and then wanting to be in denial. So the first step would be to clearly check in with me. So check in with you and ask yourself where you are. Like, what are the signs that this is super problematic? And now it's time to act. So step number 2 in my recovery roadmap would be immediate outreach. One of the hallmarks of eating disorders is that they thrive in isolation. They try to convince you, sis, to hide, to keep secrets, to handle everything alone. So my counterattack would be connection. This is exactly how I would reach out. First, I would contact somebody that I trusted, my primary support person. In my case, this was my mom. And instead of pretending like this didn't exist, enter step number 1, I would simply say, I'm struggling. I'm struggling with my thoughts. I'm struggling with my behaviors. I need to talk to somebody about it. I really think I need some support and help for myself. And if that person, like back in the day when my mom came to me and was just praying for me to get help and I was in denial, I would come to her and say, you know what? I'm not going to minimize. I'm not going to beat around the bush. You're right. And I really do need support. So it's getting through that part of the process quicker. And then I would get help professionally. If I had a treatment team already and this was a relapse, I'd contact them directly and say I'm experiencing relapse and I need to schedule an appointment as soon as possible. But if I didn't, if you're here for the first time and you're experiencing disordered eating behaviors, this step is crucial, okay? Call your primary care doctor, get a referral, look into local eating disorder treatment centers for an assessment for yourself. And of course, if you're looking for additional support, come into my inbox and see if the coaching container would be a good fit for where you are in your journey. The key here is that I wouldn't wait until things got bad enough. And you can't see me, but I'm quoting that. I know from personal experience that eating disorders escalate. And if you get them at early intervention time, it makes a tremendous difference. Now, that doesn't mean if you've been dealing with this for decades that you're not going to recover. So do not hear that as I say it, okay? But it does mean that if you're sitting with yourself today and you're like, I struggle every day of my life, sis, what are you doing right now about it? What are you doing about it? How can you take that and recommit to your best self? And then I get real honest. Like, I need accountability. I need to check in. I need a coach to help me. I need to help me by scheduling certain things into my day, like meals and keeping appointments with myself. And why does this matter to me? Breaking the isolation doesn't mean that everyone needs to know your life story and needs to know everything you're struggling with. It just means that strategically connecting with people who are for you and can provide support for you is what is best and what is going to help you thrive. Okay, the third step in my roadmap would be implementing some structure, specifically around some things that I know could help me in that exact moment. So what does that look like? Regular eating patterns. Okay, how can I help support myself in committing to eating more than I am? Or maybe at times that are going to help increase what I'm currently eating if I'm finding myself restricting. And I know personally from experience that my brain and body need consistent nourishment. And so if you're struggling with a relapse today, or you're sitting here listening, okay, what are some things I can implement? It is crucial to having that positive intent in advance and that permission in advance. And so for me personally, I would go back to my old self and say, girl, you need to have a plan ready. No need to reinvent the wheel during a vulnerable time in your life. I want you to use the exact same thing that you're eating every single day to reduce decision fatigue. Like, I want you to do that, and I want you to take it up a notch. And so structured support for you for meals is important. Setting regular eating patterns is important. I would immediately clean up my social media feeds and entertainment choices. So this means unfollowing accounts that trigger comparison or food obsession, and avoiding shows that are glorifying thinness or dieting, and curating content that supports more of a recovery mindset is where I would be focusing on. Does that look like getting into somebody's group, like our private Facebook community, Her Best Self Society? You can find us at herbestselfsociety.com, where you're going to be with like-minded individuals instead of on the thinness fitspiration chains. And so that is something that I would put into place, is those boundaries. And then how can I set some clear boundaries with myself around exercise? Now, again, if you're struggling with an eating disorder and obsessive exercise, this is really hard to do yourself. For me, it was so hard to temporarily pause any formalized exercise and focus on gentle movement. And that's why I needed that extra layer of support, because I became so compulsive and feeling so lazy if I wasn't doing something, not to trigger anyone out there, but that I needed that extra layer of support. And maybe that's you too. Maybe you're like, I need help. That is so good to be in that place, because then you can do something about it. And then another thing that I would start earlier, if I could go back and go through this journey all over again, would be where I documented my thoughts and did some self-monitoring. Really got real with my feelings. Not to be perfect, not to kind of over-index everything that I'm thinking and feeling, but to increase awareness of patterns and triggers. This is going to help rebuild trust with your body, rebuild trust with your mind, and really destabilize that mind chatter that happens when you're really getting sucked into the vortex of an eating disorder. The fourth step in my recovery roadmap would be investigating what is triggering me in my life. Yes, eating disorders are complex illnesses, and they have biological and psychological and social components to them, but they're not just about food or weight. And so going back in time, I would try to figure out what was serving me by being chained to this disorder, or how is it meeting my need, even though it was unhealthy. These are some things to think about too if you're sitting in a relapse today, or if you're finding yourself at rock bottom. What changes in my life have happened recently? Did I just experience a significant transition? Did I have a loss? Did I get some increased responsibility or a change in my relationships? Eating disorders, they flare during periods of change, and also during periods where you're feeling like you have this loss of control in your life. And so going back to, what emotions am I struggling to manage? What am I trying to numb? What am I trying to distract myself from? What am I trying to control? What needs of mine aren't being met right now? These are all questions that are going to help you. And I truly feel like if I had sat with myself and asked and been super real with myself on the external pressures that I was responding to and just these beliefs that I was believing and falling into that black and white thinking and that perfectionism around my body image and my appearance, and that time in my life, I'm not saying that I would have prevented this from happening, because eating disorders are not a choice, sis. But I feel like it would have definitely helped me to identify and understand what was happening in terms of triggers and getting that healing just beyond the behaviors themselves, but really working towards how do I process these emotions in my life in a more healthy way. And the fifth step in my recovery roadmap would be developing a plan for kind of like an immediate crisis response plan. Like, what am I going to do to create lasting recovery? Because that requires more than just putting out fires throughout our lives. And so that is going to be working with someone to help determine exactly the support that you need and to put some of that criteria in place, some of that planning in place to rebuild your life, and doing that through developing coping strategies and really creating a relapse prevention plan, literally documenting, these are some early warning signs for me, and these are high risk controlling situations, and then working through what do I need to think clearly and actions that I can take so that I'm not slipping back into those old patterns and behaviors. But the sustainable plan would be about building a life where the eating disorder becomes less necessary and less powerful, and where recovery feels like you're moving towards something meaningful rather than just running away from an illness. And the final and perhaps the most important step in my roadmap, if I could go back in time, would be reconnecting with this motivation around my why. The values that the eating disorder violates, it's creating that promise of control or safety or worthiness, but it actually is undermining your core values, your freedom that you have within you, the joy that you experience in life, your personal creativity, what you think are like your moral compass values, your authenticity, all of those things, it robs you of. And truly thinking about what those values are and why your life is so much more important than your body and your thoughts around your body and food and what other people are thinking of you. Level setting of like, what do I want my life to look like beyond where I currently am? What is my best self? If I could go back in time, literally 15 plus years ago, and say, friend, you're going to have to go through this god-awful period of your life, but on the other side of it is going to be magical. It's going to be so good. And you're going to be able to experience things that you never would have allowed. Wonderful relationships and contributions to the world. If I could go back and go through this again, and if I was trapped right now, I would start dreaming right now of the vision that I wanted beyond the eating disorder. And in addition to that, I would start to compile a list of the cost of being chained to the disorder. Because when we're in it, we don't see what it's taking from us. We actually feel like we're on top of the world in a lot of different times in our life, in a lot of different ways. It's like this pendulum of the superiority complex to being at the lowest of the lows. So asking the question, what has this eating disorder taken from me? And what present moments is it stealing from me? Sis, what is it stealing from you? What future opportunities have not even happened yet that will be destroyed if you don't fix this in your life? Those are things that I wish I could go back and tell my younger self. As I wrap up this episode today, I want to emphasize recovery isn't about doing any and everything perfectly. It's not about my going back in time and just making it all perfect so that it never existed, but it's just shed some light in the direction of healing for you to take next. And if I were to go through an eating disorder right now today again, I wouldn't expect to implement every single step that I talked about today flawlessly or immediately. I would focus on progress, not perfection. I'd remember that everything that I was doing that was getting me closer to my best self, the self I truly wanted, was a win. Every compassionate moment with myself is a victory, regardless of what happened the day before or the day after. Sis, recovery isn't a destination you reach once and for all. It's not like a race that you get to the end of and you go, yes, I've arrived and I just beat everyone else. These are skills that you're learning. So if you are finding yourself in the trenches, trapped today, or if you've relapsed, I just want you to know that you haven't failed. You've simply just encountered another opportunity to look in to yourself and practice that compassion, to practice that choice, to recommit again to the path that is going to lead you towards freedom and toward connection and towards a life that is aligned with your deepest desires. Friend, I hope that you've enjoyed this episode today. Thank you so much for joining me. If you found it helpful, I would love to hear about it. I would love to hear about your journey and where you are along your path right now. And remember, whether this is your first day in recovery or your 1000th, whether you're thriving or whether you're struggling, you're worthy of support, you're worthy of compassion, and you're worthy of a life free from the constraints you're feeling right now. Until next time, be gentle with yourself. Recovery isn't just possible. With the right support, sis, and a recommitment, it's inevitable. I believe in you. I love you, friend, and I'll talk to you real soon. Bye for now. Oh, friend, thank you so much for letting me share what was on my heart today. My hope for this podcast is to help more women find freedom from food and body. If this has empowered or blessed you, let me know. I'd be honored for your rating and review of my show, and I'd love to connect with you in my private Facebook community. You really can move from perfection to purpose. Let's break the chains together. I'll help navigate the way. Until next time, bye for now, girl.